This was our sixth game in a series. I don't know when it's going to end, but I am playing an unnamed opponent. And he's getting better and better, but little did he know, I learned an age-old trick of fasting to increase your mental acuity. And Pythagoras figured that out. So this was like thousands of years old, this strategy of mine. Ha ha ha. No, one day he's going to kick my butt, but watch. Here we go. Best by test. Eddie Fisher. All right. E4 opening. And the complimentary set here. I did the Ruy Lopez. Well, actually, this turned into the Scotch game. Had I jumped out with the bishop, that would have been the Ruy Lopez. But I don't care about openings. I don't want to study them. I'm not worried about it. I just kind of know how they work, so the idea is to kind of sort of never push a pawn twice. The same pawn, develop as fast as possible, get castled. Castle before you have to, all right? So I went ahead and captured. He didn't capture, which I thought was interesting because the line after that, if he captures, I capture the queen and then put the queen on a4, and she's pretty safe for quite a while. So I decided to, all right, what does that do? Well, it screws up his pawn structure, and he has no choice because if not, I'm going to grab his queen, or he'll have to move her out. Now I've doubled up some pawns, and I go and attack the knight again. This was a slash and burn game. I wanted to see how quickly I could get into the end game. And it brings the bishop out, and I just kind of sort of, probably just to go ahead and castle. But all of a sudden, I move my queen. Now, that's going to freak him out a little bit because very quickly I could control f7, and it would be a queen exchange. But castling would have been a really good deal too because then he protects it with his rook. Either way, he did move the bishop, and I go ahead and develop again. All right, my will was to castle kingside, but as it turns out later, you'll see what happened. I chose not to do that, and I want to make sure that little pesky bishop on c8 couldn't kind of just jump in there and mess up my day. So he goes ahead and attacks the b pawn, and I go ahead and castle. All right, so I castled to defend my b pawn against the rook, and he pushes a pawn. I wonder if he was going to try maybe a pawn storm, but again, he's missing his b pawn. So here I fork, and it does a couple things here. It actually kind of freaks out his knight. He's really kind of in a pickle here because if he captures, then I take his queen with my rook. So he does move it, attacks my knight. Now I have two choices. I can re-attack his knight and then double up his d-pawns, and that allows me immediately to move in with a rook. But I said, no, let's go ahead and just take out the bishop. And he recaptures. Thinking back on it, it might have been interesting, but I didn't like the idea of his gaining a move. Because if I remember correctly, let's see, where was I again? Yeah, I didn't like it because he could have immediately checked my king, so that's why I did that. All right, then I go ahead and take his pawn anyway, wahoo, and he's back by a rook. All right, not passed, but it's a defended pawn. And of course, now I'm kind of sitting there going, what's my next strategy? Well, let's go ahead and put some pressure on the f-square. Why not? This is an instant checkmate if he doesn't do something. Ooh, nice move. But it's kind of a weird move. It blocks me, but I'm not in any hurry because his queen is still in jeopardy. Note that if he captures with the d, again, I still win a queen for a rook. That's 4 points. Big fan. So I go ahead and put my pigs on the center. I control the board right now. The board is mine. I'm completely developed. I'm castled. He's not castled, and he still has 2 pieces yet to develop. So the queen comes out, and I'm kind of looking, he has kind of a threat here because I really have no piece that can retake, and then he really makes my life miserable with that queen. So I could either move the bishop back or push it, but I still wanted to control that square. And I needed to move the bishop because now his d is freewheeling. He can do what he wants. Any castles? Now, when you have kings that castle on opposing sides, I did queen, he did king. Now it's a race to the king. It's just a race at this point. So yeah, let's go ahead and take that. Yeah, the pony. I got the pony for free, and now he's blocking my rook, kind of. All right. I really don't have a play right now because my c pawn is actually keeping my bishop from moving around, and of course my knight's in the way. So I'm good. Let's just go ahead and double up and see what we can do. And the queen now moves back, and that's a direct assault to my rook. And I'm thinking to myself, screw it, take it. It's fine, because now I'm still doubled up rooks, and I get a pawn, and again, the pawn, I can grab the pawn whenever I want, but I did reopen up this hole with the bishop. Now, his rook had a pretty decent play on f2, and I can't kind of think of why he didn't do that. Oh, okay, well now he's going to double attack the f pawn. So what do? Let's go ahead and pick up a pawn. I'm good, because there's not much he can really do. He can retake the pawn, and then sorry. Yeah, I checked his king. Sorry. Sometimes I can't quite remember why he wouldn't do what he did, and now I go ahead and protect the pawn, and that takes care of the rook problem. A little push to give himself some breath. I understand that completely. And here I wanted to maneuver the knight around because I want to reposition him at least on G, and or try to get him around on the E file if I can. And here's an interesting situation. Now, if I move the queen, I absolutely can't check. I don't have an in-between move called an intermezzo. I can't take any pawns, and essentially I just give up the rook. I said, well, how cool. I can take 2 rooks for my queen. So I still go up a point. And that's exactly what I do. And I get an extra move. So he has to move his king. And now I get a free move. And I want to open my bishop up so that I can go ahead. And here's a potential mate. So he has to deal with this. There's nothing else he can do. So he gets his king out to where he can actually get some maneuvering. But I love kings when they're out in the open because I can use them as ransom. So he kind of made this interesting queen move. And I don't, kind of thinking, I don't know exactly. Now I can't even think what the heck. Except he thought maybe I would have done a combo to grab 2 pawns with my 2 pieces. But again, I'm not trading in 6 for 2. Doesn't make sense. But here's an interesting thing. A lot of new players think their queen is absolutely the most powerful piece, and I can't part with her. But I have 3 pretty good pieces against a queen. And if you guys ever watched the Justice League, you know they had to revive Superman. I get it. But Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, and the Cyborg dude, 4 against 1 just really bad god, could have probably won in the end. Although he did have like those 3 cubes. So they kind of needed Superman to offset those 3 cubes. All right. The idea is that I have 3 pieces to 1. And they actually number 11. So I'm, trust me, anyone with any experience with a rook, a knight, and a bishop will always beat a queen. All right. It's just how it's going to happen. Well, he can't push his pawn to fork right now because I get a nice queen. And now I have 3 pieces attacking to 2. He's got to do something. All right, well, I reckon I could have taken the pawn. He retakes. I retake, which was a possibility. I would have done it with the knight first. and there's really nothing he could do there, because I would come back, check, and then I would have a surprise, what we call, I think it was an indirect attack. I can't remember the names. But had I went ahead and used my bishop to check the king, opening a pathway to the queen, he would have lost his queen for my rook. So I'd go ahead and defend the rook, and now he's going to go ahead and put a little pressure. His idea is to come down to F to check my king and then pick off the pawns. So I check, and I get him in a situation where he has to move his king again, and I get to pick up the pawn for free. Why? Well, here's the deal. If he takes my rook, then I go ahead and take the pawn with the bishop, forking the queen and the king. And if she retakes, then I'm in a forking situation where I'm going to win the queen anyway. All right, because she has no choice. He would have no choice. He would take the bishop, and then I would still take the queen, and I'm up 2 pawns at this point, so the game is still over. Yeah, this was probably kind of an in-between move. I still can't understand what that was trying to do. Maybe attack my pony, which works, all right? But I'm still in a position where I get a pawn. Because again, if she takes the pawn, she takes my knight, well, she skewers herself against the king. And I have an option here. He has no choice but to move the queen, because my knight to b4 wins a queen. All right? It's an indirect attack, exposed attack, I think that's what they call it. And my knight attacking his king. Again, I'm using him as all kinds of ransom. So here's a good move. This is a great move. And I'm thinking to myself, well, shoot, I can't move the king anywhere, because all she does is just move up the line, picking off my pawns. So I said, well, I get to pin my bishop, but I don't allow her to take my pawns. Whoa, that was actually pretty fun. Because if you do take the pawn, I go ahead and retake his pawn on h5. All right, well, he got his king out of the way, and I went ahead and just grabbed his a pawn, and now it's just a pawn fest. His king can't move any farther south than the 6th rank because my rook owns it. And now I've redefended my g and put an attack with an intermezzo on his d7 because I would check the king. So he pushes a pawn, taking up some time. And now I do my push. I want to run that a pawn all the way up the board if I can, put my rook in behind it. Protected pass pawn, according to Nimzovich, was a criminal who a life sentence isn't even good enough for, something like that, if I remember my reading. So he puts his queen back, and he does a beautiful, beautiful triple fork. This is absolutely gorgeous. He has attacked my knight, my bishop, and my rook, all right? I mean, obviously my bishop's protected by the king, but I would have to move the rook out. That would allow his king to come down and then fork my knight anyway. And here's the brilliant move of a lifetime. It allows me to attack the king. He has only either c7, e7, or he can move back to d8 to avoid the check, because the queen is just not going to work there. And he can't attack my rook because he has to manage the king. Here again, the ransom of the king. And then the other stellar move is to go ahead and throw the rook, checking the king, and also protecting my knight. This presents a problem. As he moved back, I had immediately won the game, because no matter what he does with his king, I have a rook, a knight fork, and the queen sits there waiting to be taken out. So he does move his king, and I go ahead and check his king with an exposed attack on the queen, and he moves the king back. I take the queen, and he resigns. So kind of an interesting game, and we'll go ahead and upload this so that you guys can take a look at it. Again, this is not a boasty thing. He played an excellent game. I had to really, really be on my toes on this one. But again, in the end, don't be afraid to give up your queen if you can get a material advantage. And at the end here, yeah, I mean, the rook is sitting there, just march the a-pawn up. Probably just promote to a rook. I don't need anything more powerful. Matter of fact, I'm afraid with so much power on the board because if he winds up getting his pawns in a situation where they can't move, I could stalemate him. And I just, you know what, I play it super safe right now. I just want a 1 in the winning column, all right? All right, guys, you have a great day, and the next game has started, so it may take a month or so to play, but we'll upload that one when we can. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll talk soon. Bye.